I walked through my front door at 6:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, expecting the usual quiet evening routine. Maybe Laura would be prepping dinner, or scrolling through her phone on the couch, or organizing her endless collection of fitness supplements in the kitchen. What I didn't expect was laughter that sounded too intimate, too private, echoing from the direction of our granite-topped kitchen island. My wife stood close, too close, to my best friend Brandon Lake, her hand resting on his forearm like it belonged there. Her eyes sparkled with the kind of brightness I hadn't seen directed at me in months, maybe longer. Brandon leaned in toward her, his body language screaming familiarity, comfort, ownership even. They looked like they were sharing secrets, not just casual conversation between friends. The scene hit me like a punch to the gut, but I kept my expression neutral. Years of working in IT consulting had taught me to assess situations before reacting. Data first, emotions second. And the data here was crystal clear. My wife was flirting with my best friend in our kitchen, and neither of them seemed to care that I was standing 10 feet away. "Hey there, stranger," Laura said when she finally noticed me, her voice carrying that artificially bright tone she used when she was caught doing something she shouldn't. Her hand didn't move from Brandon's arm. If anything, she seemed to press closer to him, like she was making a point. Brandon turned toward me with his trademark cocky grin, the same one that had charmed teachers in high school and customers at his classic car garage ever since. "Ethan. Just the man we were talking about." He gestured toward Laura with his free hand. "Your wife here was telling me about your anniversary plans. Sounds like you've got something special brewing." The thing is, we didn't have anniversary plans. Our anniversary wasn't for another 4 months, and given the state of our marriage lately, I doubted we'd be celebrating it together. So either Brandon was lying to cover for whatever conversation I'd actually interrupted, or Laura was spinning fantasies about our relationship to make herself look better. Neither option sat well with me. "That's interesting," I said, setting my laptop bag down on the entry table with deliberate calm. Since I don't remember discussing any anniversary plans recently, I looked directly at Laura, waiting for an explanation that didn't come. Instead, she laughed, a sound that used to make me smile but now felt like nails on a chalkboard. "Oh, you know how it is. A girl can dream, right?" She finally removed her hand from Brandon's arm, but only to gesture dramatically. "Besides, Brandon was just telling me about this amazing restaurant he heard about. Maybe we should check it out sometime." The way she said "we" was ambiguous enough to make my jaw clench. Did she mean her and me, or her and Brandon? Based on their body language, I had a pretty good idea which option she preferred. Brandon, to his credit, at least had the decency to look slightly uncomfortable. He ran a hand through his dark hair, a nervous habit I'd known about since we were teenagers, and took a small step back from Laura. "Actually, I should probably head out. Got an early morning tomorrow at the shop." "Oh, don't leave on my account," I said, my voice carrying just enough edge to make both of them pause. I'd hate to interrupt whatever important conversation you two were having about restaurants and anniversary plans that don't exist. The kitchen went dead silent. Laura's cheeks flushed pink, but not from embarrassment, from anger. I could see it building in her eyes, that familiar storm that preceded one of her dramatic outbursts. Brandon shifted his weight from foot to foot, clearly wishing he was anywhere else. "You know what, Ethan?" Laura's voice had gone from artificially bright to dangerously low. "I was just being friendly. Brandon is our friend. Remember friends? Those people you used to have before you became so suspicious and controlling?" Controlling. There it was. Her favorite word to throw at me whenever I called out behavior that crossed obvious lines. According to Laura, asking her not to stay out until 3 a.m. without calling was controlling. Questioning why she needed to go to girls' nights 3 times a week was controlling. And apparently, asking her not to flirt with my best friend in our kitchen was also controlling. "I'm not being controlling," I said, keeping my voice level despite the anger building in my chest. "I'm asking you to stop doing something that makes me uncomfortable in my own home. That's not unreasonable." Laura's laugh was sharp and bitter. "Your home? Last I checked, both our names are on the mortgage, buddy." She crossed her arms over her chest, her fitness instructor posture making her look like she was ready for a fight. "No, and last I checked, I'm allowed to have conversations with friends without getting the 3rd degree from my husband." Brandon cleared his throat awkwardly. "Listen, maybe I should really go. This seems like something you two need to work out between yourselves." "No," Laura said quickly, her eyes never leaving mine. "You don't need to go anywhere. This is supposed to be a welcoming home." She paused, and I could see her building up to something. The air in the kitchen felt electric, charged with the kind of tension that comes right before lightning strikes. Then she delivered the blow that would change everything. "If you don't like it, Ethan, the door's always open. You can leave if you don't like what you see. And you can walk back in through that same door anytime you want, assuming you come to your senses and remember how to treat people with respect. The words hung in the air like smoke after a gunshot. Laura's chin was raised defiantly, her arms still crossed, waiting for me to back down the way I had so many times before. Brandon looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. And me? I felt something cold and final settle into my chest. I'd heard enough dismissive comments from Laura over the past year to fill a book. Enough eye rolls, enough sighs, enough implications that I was being unreasonable for expecting basic respect in my own marriage. But this was different. This was her telling me, in front of my best friend, that I was unwelcome in my own home unless I was willing to tolerate whatever behavior she felt like displaying. The door's always open. I looked at her for a long moment, memorizing the defiant expression on her face, the way she stood like she'd just won some kind of victory. Then I looked at Brandon, who was studying his shoes like they contained the secrets of the universe. "You're right," I said finally. "The door is always open." I picked up my laptop bag, pulled my car keys from my pocket, and walked back toward the front door. Behind me, I heard Laura's sharp intake of breath, the first sign that maybe she was realizing this wasn't going the way she'd expected. "Ethan, wait," she started, but I was already turning the handle. I stepped outside into the cool evening air, turned around one last time to see Laura standing in the doorway with confusion replacing the defiance on her face, and then I closed the door behind me. The click of the lock sounded louder than any argument we'd ever had. As I walked to my car, I could hear her calling my name through the door, her voice already taking on the panicked edge that meant she was starting to understand what had just happened. But I didn't turn around. I got in my car, started the engine, and drove away from the house we'd bought together 3 years ago, when we still believed in forever. I didn't know it yet, but I would never sleep in that house again. The Hampton Inn on Route 9 wasn't exactly luxury accommodations, but it was clean, quiet, and most importantly, it was 20 minutes away from Laura and whatever conversation she was probably having with Brandon right about now. I sat on the edge of the generic beige bedspread, staring at my phone and trying to process what had just happened. In the space of 10 minutes, my marriage had effectively ended. Not with screaming or tears or dramatic declarations, but with a simple statement about an open door and my decision to actually walk through it. Laura had been testing me, pushing boundaries to see how much disrespect I'd tolerate. She just hadn't expected me to choose option 3, leave entirely. My phone buzzed. A text from Laura. "Ethan, come home. We need to talk." Then another. "I didn't mean it like that. You know I didn't." And another. "Brandon left. It's just me here. Please come back." I turned the phone face down on the nightstand and opened my laptop instead. If Laura thought this was just another fight that would blow over by morning, she was about to learn otherwise. I'd been in IT long enough to know that information was power, and I'd been collecting information about my wife's behavior for longer than she realized. It started innocently enough, about 6 months ago. Laura had become increasingly secretive about her phone, taking it with her to the bathroom, sleeping with it under her pillow, getting defensive when I was anywhere near it. She'd also started working late more often, going out with the girls multiple times a week, and coming home with stories that didn't quite add up. I'm not naturally a suspicious person, but I'm also not stupid. When someone you've been married to for 5 years suddenly changes their behavior patterns, you notice? When they start accusing you of being controlling for asking basic questions about their whereabouts, you start paying closer attention. So I'd started documenting things. Not in a creepy stalker way, just basic information that any reasonable husband might notice. Times she said she'd be home versus when she actually arrived. Names of friends she claimed to be with, cross-referenced with social media posts that showed those friends were actually somewhere else entirely. Credit card statements showing charges at restaurants and bars during times she was supposedly at yoga class or the grocery store. I opened a new folder on my laptop and labeled it Documentation. Then I started organizing 6 months' worth of inconsistencies, lies, and red flags that I'd been hoping were just misunderstandings. My phone rang. Laura's ringtone. Our song. From when we were dating, which now felt like a cruel joke. I let it go to voicemail, then played the message back. "Ethan, please pick up. I know you're upset, and I get it, okay? Maybe I was being a little too friendly with Brandon, but that's all it was, just being friendly. You're making this into something it's not. Come home so we can talk about this like adults." A little too friendly, that was rich. I'd seen a little too friendly. This was something else entirely. This was my wife putting her hands on another man in our kitchen, looking at him the way she used to look at me, and then telling me I could leave if I didn't like it. I called my buddy Mike Chen from work. Mike was one of those guys who never sugarcoated anything. If you wanted brutal honesty, he was your man. He answered on the second ring. "Ethan? What's up, man?" You sound weird. I need a favor, I said, and I need you to not ask too many questions about why. Okay, now you sound really weird. What kind of favor? I explained the situation in broad terms. Marriage problems, suspicious behavior, need for documentation. Mike listened without interrupting, which was unusual for him. When I finished, there was a long pause. Jesus, Ethan, how long has this been going on? The suspicious stuff? About 6 months. Tonight was just the final straw. And you've been documenting everything? As much as I could without feeling like a complete psycho. But I think I need to be more thorough now. Mike was quiet for another moment. Then, you know I work in digital forensics, right? Like this is literally what I do for a living, except usually for companies trying to catch employees stealing data. I know, that's why I'm calling you. Ethan, I can't help you hack into your wife's accounts or anything like that. That's illegal, even if you're married. I'm not asking you to hack anything. I'm asking you to help me organize what I already have access to, and maybe advise me on what else I should be documenting going forward. All legal stuff. Another pause. Are you sure you want to go down this road? Once you start really digging, you might find things you wish you hadn't. I thought about Laura's hand on Brandon's arm, the way she'd looked at him, the casual cruelty in her voice when she told me the door was always open. I'm sure, I said. All right. I'm coming over. Where are you staying? I gave him the hotel information, and he promised to be there within an hour. After we hung up, I sat back against the headboard and tried to figure out how my life had gone so completely off the rails. 5 years ago, Laura and I had been happy. Really, genuinely happy. We'd met at a friend's barbecue. She was the fitness instructor who made everyone laugh. I was the quiet IT guy who somehow managed to make her laugh back. We'd talked for hours that first night about everything and nothing. She was vibrant and spontaneous, where I was steady and practical. It felt like a perfect balance. The first couple years of marriage were good, great even. We bought the house, adopted a routine, talked about kids and vacation plans and growing old together. But somewhere along the way, that balance had shifted. My steadiness became boring to her. Her spontaneity became irresponsibility to me. We started having the same fights over and over again, her staying out too late, me being too rigid, her feeling suffocated, me feeling disrespected. And now we were here. Me in a hotel room, her at home probably wondering if I was actually serious this time, and 6 months' worth of evidence suggesting that our marriage had been over long before tonight's kitchen confrontation. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Laura. I'm sorry, please come home. Then, Brandon said you seemed really upset. I didn't realize you were that bothered by us talking. And finally, I love you. Don't let one stupid fight ruin everything we've built together. I stared at that last message for a long time. One stupid fight. That's what she thought this was. Not the culmination of months of disrespect and boundary crossing, but one isolated incident that I was blowing out of proportion. That told me everything I needed to know about how seriously she was taking this situation. Mike arrived 45 minutes later with his laptop bag and a cup of coffee that smelled like it could wake the dead. He took one look at me and shook his head. You look like hell, man. Thanks. That's exactly what I needed to hear right now. Sorry, I just meant, you look like you haven't slept in a week. I feel like I haven't slept in 6 months. Mike set up his laptop on the small hotel desk and gestured for me to join him. All right, show me what you've got. For the next 2 hours, we went through everything I'd documented. Mike helped me organize it chronologically, cross-reference dates and times, and identify patterns I hadn't noticed before. What emerged was a clear picture of someone who had been living a double life for months. This is pretty damning stuff, Mike said finally, leaning back in his chair. I mean, none of it's smoking gun evidence of an affair, but it's definitely evidence of someone who's been lying consistently about where she's been and what she's been doing. What would you do? I asked. If this was your wife? Mike was quiet for a long moment. Honestly, I'd probably have confronted her months ago. The fact that you've been living with this level of deception for this long, man, I don't know how you did it. I kept hoping I was wrong, that there was some explanation that would make it all make sense. And now? I thought about Laura's defiant expression, her hand on Brandon's arm, her casual dismissal of my concerns. Now I know better. Mike closed his laptop and looked at me seriously. So, what's your plan? Are you going to confront her with all this? Eventually. But first, I think I need to talk to a lawyer. You're really thinking about divorce. The word hung in the air between us. Divorce. The end of everything Laura and I had built together. The end of the future we'd planned. The end of the person I'd thought I was going to be? Yeah, I said. I think I am. Mike nodded slowly. I know a guy. Family law attorney. Really good, really discreet. Want me to give him a call tomorrow? Yeah, thanks. After Mike left, I sat alone in the hotel room and tried to imagine what my life was going to look like from here. No more shared mortgage payments. No more arguments about whose turn it was to do the dishes. No more hoping that tomorrow would be the day Laura remembered why she'd married me in the first place. It was terrifying and liberating at the same time. My phone buzzed one more time. Laura again? It's midnight. Are you really not coming home? We can fix this, Ethan. Don't give up on us. I turned off the phone without responding. Some doors, once you walk through them, don't lead back to where you started. They lead somewhere completely new, and for the first time in months, I was okay with that. The law offices of Davidson, Martinez, and Associates occupied the 15th floor of a glass tower downtown, the kind of building that screamed expensive legal services and billable hours that could fund a small country. I sat in the waiting area at 9 a.m. sharp, wearing my best suit and trying not to think about the fact that I was about to pay someone hundreds of dollars an hour to help me dismantle my marriage. Laura had called 6 more times since midnight. I'd listened to exactly one voicemail, which was mostly her crying and asking me to please come home so we could work this out like we always do. The problem was, we'd never actually worked anything out. I'd just gotten tired of fighting and given in to whatever she wanted. There's a difference between resolution and surrender, and I was finally old enough to understand it. Mr. Peterson? A woman in an expensive-looking suit appeared beside my chair. I'm Jennifer Martinez. Thank you for coming in on such short notice. Jennifer Martinez was probably in her mid-40s, with silver-streaked hair and the kind of confident handshake that suggested she'd been breaking up marriages professionally for a long time. Her office was all dark wood and leather, with diplomas and bar certifications covering one wall and a view of the city that probably cost more per month than my car payment. So, she said, settling behind her desk with a legal pad and pen, Mike Chen gave me some background on your situation, but I'd like to hear it from you. Start from the beginning. I told her everything. The gradual changes in Laura's behavior, the lies about where she'd been and who she'd been with, the increasing disrespect and boundary crossing, and finally the kitchen confrontation that had led me to walk out. Jennifer took notes throughout, asking clarifying questions about dates, times, and specific incidents. And you've been documenting this behavior for how long? She asked. About 6 months. I have credit card statements, text message screenshots, photos with timestamps. Everything Mike helped me organize is in here. I handed her a flash drive. I know it's not proof of an affair, but it's proof of a pattern of deception. Jennifer plugged the drive into her computer and spent several minutes scrolling through the files. Her expression remained professionally neutral, but I caught her raising an eyebrow a couple of times. This is very thorough, she said finally. And you're right, it's not definitive proof of adultery, but it's certainly evidence of behavior that would be relevant in a divorce proceeding. The question is, what outcome are you looking for here? I want out of the marriage. I want to keep the house if possible. I put down the entire down payment. And I've been making most of the mortgage payments since Laura started working part-time. And I want to make sure she can't claim I abandoned her, or was abusive or controlling, because I guarantee you that's the angle she's going to take. Jennifer nodded. Those are all reasonable goals. The house situation will depend on how the equity is calculated and what other assets are involved, but the fact that you provided the down payment and have been the primary contributor to the mortgage payments will definitely work in your favor. She leaned back in her chair and studied me for a moment. Can I ask you something, Mr. Peterson? Are you absolutely certain you want to pursue divorce? I ask because I've seen a lot of people in your situation, and some of them end up regretting moving too quickly when they're angry. I thought about that for a moment. Was this just anger talking? Was I throwing away 5 years of marriage over one bad night and a bunch of circumstantial evidence? Then I remembered the look in Laura's eyes when she told me the door was always open. Not anger, not hurt, not even guilt. Just casual indifference to my feelings and my presence in my own home. I'm sure, I said. All right then, here's what we're going to do. For the next hour, Jennifer walked me through the divorce process in our state. No-fault divorce, which meant we didn't need to prove adultery or abuse, just irreconcilable differences. 60-day waiting period from filing to finalization. Mandatory mediation for asset division if we couldn't agree on terms privately. I'm going to prepare the initial filing today, she said. We'll cite irreconcilable differences and request division of marital assets, with your preference noted for retaining the marital home. I'll also include a request for temporary exclusive use of the residence during the proceedings.
I used to fucking
What
kill
does that mean?
dogs on my fucking
It means you can go
other
home,
outlaw
and she can't.
character.
Given that you left the residence due
felt
to her
wrong.
inappropriate behavior
It
with
felt
another
wrong
man,
to do, man.
and given that you're the
Was not
primary
a good
mortgage holder,
feeling.
there's a good chance a judge
Like,
will
if it
grant
was
it.
like I would
The
only
idea of
do
going
it
back
if
to
it
my
was
own
for
house,
Nicholas, right?
of
I
sleeping
wouldn't
in
just
my
do it
own
for
bed
killing
without
dogs
Laura
for
there,
money, but,
felt
like,
surreal. For 5
that little
years, that house
outlaw,
had been
oof.
ours. Now it might be
He
just
was a
mine.
fucking twisted individual.
How long before she gets served with papers? If you give me the go-ahead today, she'll be served by Friday. Are you prepared for that conversation?
Yeah.
I thought about Laura's voicemails, her tears,
He wouldn't
her
grade
insistence
prom,
that we could
but he
work
would
this out
kill
like we
dog
always do.
cats.
No, she definitely wasn't going to be prepared for divorce papers. She's going to lose her mind, I said. Probably. That's why I want to make sure you have somewhere safe to stay until the temporary residence order comes through. Do you think she might become volatile? I considered that. Laura had always been dramatic, but violent. I didn't think so. Manipulative, guilt-tripping, probably calling everyone we knew to tell them what a terrible husband I was. Absolutely. But I didn't think she'd try to hurt me physically. No, I don't think she's dangerous, just loud. Jennifer smiled. I've dealt with Loud before. The important thing is that you don't engage with her directly once she's been served. Any communication needs to go through me. Can you do that? Yeah, I think so. Good. One more thing. Do you have any joint credit cards or bank accounts that she might try to drain out of spite? I felt my stomach drop. We had a joint checking account that both our paychecks went into, plus a joint credit card that Laura used for most of her personal expenses. In all the emotional chaos of the last 24 hours, I hadn't even thought about the financial vulnerability I was in. Yes, joint checking and one credit card. We need to protect those assets immediately. I'm going to give you a letter to take to your bank today that will freeze the joint accounts pending the divorce proceedings. She won't be able to withdraw anything beyond normal living expenses, and neither will you, but it prevents either party from hiding or depleting marital assets. She printed out several documents and handed them to me. This is your copy of the divorce filing, the temporary residence request, and the asset protection letter. Take the letter to your bank today. The filing will be submitted this afternoon, and she'll be served Friday morning. I stared at the papers in my hands. 48 hours ago, I'd been a married man with problems. Now I was about to become a divorced man with lawyers. Any questions? Jennifer asked. Just one. What are the chances she'll contest this? Try to drag it out, make it ugly? Jennifer's expression was sympathetic, but realistic. Based on what you've told me about her personality and her reaction so far, I'd say there's a very good chance she'll contest it initially. People don't like being surprised with divorce papers, especially when they think they're in control of the situation. But most contested divorces end up settling out of court once both parties realize how expensive and time-consuming litigation can be. How expensive are we talking? If it goes to trial, could be anywhere from $20,000 to $50,000, depending on how long it drags out. If we can settle in mediation, more like $5,000 to $10,000 total. I winced. Even the cheap option was going to hurt financially, but staying married to someone who didn't respect me was going to cost me a lot more in the long run. Okay, let's do it. I left the law office with a folder full of papers that represented the end of my marriage and drove straight to the bank. The account freeze process was surprisingly simple. A few signatures, a copy of the letter from my attorney, and suddenly Laura's access to our joint finances was severely limited. It felt like I was cutting off her oxygen supply, which made me feel guilty until I remembered that she'd been using that same joint account to pay for dinners and drinks during her mysterious nights out. If she was going to lie to me about where she was and who she was with, she could damn well pay for it with her own money. My phone had been buzzing constantly all morning, more calls and texts from Laura, each one more frantic than the last. I finally turned it off and drove back to the hotel, where I spent the rest of the day trying to work remotely and failing miserably to concentrate on anything other than the fact that my entire life was about to change. Friday morning came faster than I expected. I was sitting in a diner near the hotel, picking at a plate of eggs I didn't really want, when my phone rang. Jennifer Martinez. She's been served, Jennifer said without preamble. About 20 minutes ago. How are you holding up? I'm okay. Has she called you yet? Not yet, but I expect she will, or her attorney will once she hires one. Are you prepared for the fallout? Before I could answer, my phone started buzzing with an incoming call. Laura's number. She's calling me right now, I told Jennifer. Don't answer it. Let it go to voicemail, then forward the voicemail to me. From now on, all communication goes through attorneys. I let the call go to voicemail, then watched as 3 more calls came in immediately after. Then the text messages started. What the hell is this, Ethan? Divorce papers? Are you insane? You can't just throw away 5 years of marriage over one stupid fight. Call me back right now. And then, a few minutes later, I can't believe you froze our bank accounts. How am I supposed to pay for groceries? I forwarded all of it to Jennifer and turned the phone off again. Whatever Laura was going through right now, whatever shock or anger or panic she was feeling, it wasn't my responsibility to manage anymore. For the first time in months, that felt like freedom. 3 days after Laura was served with divorce papers, I got a call from Mike that changed everything. "Dude, you need to know something," he said without preamble. "I was at Murphy's pub last night, and guess who I saw having dinner together?" I was sitting in the hotel room, trying to review a client proposal that was due Monday, but Mike's tone made me close the laptop immediately. Laura and Brandon, bingo, and they weren't exactly trying to hide it. Corner booth, holding hands across the table, the whole 9 yards. When they got up to leave, he had his arm around her waist like they were a couple. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. I'd suspected there was something going on between them, but seeing it confirmed was different than just knowing it intellectually. "Did they see you?" "Oh yeah." Made eye contact with Laura right as they were walking out. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. Brandon just looked pissed off, like I'd interrupted something. I rubbed my temples, feeling a headache building. Great. So now they know that people are seeing them together. "Ethan, there's more. I talked to Jimmy Santos. You remember Jimmy? Works at Brandon's garage? He says Brandon's been bragging to the guys there about how he's helping Laura through a difficult time with her marriage. A real sympathetic friend, you know? Except Jimmy says Brandon's been talking about her like she's already his girlfriend." The headache was getting worse. "How long has this been going on?" "According to Jimmy, at least a couple months, maybe longer." A couple months. That lined up perfectly with when Laura's behavior had started changing, when the lies and the late nights and the mysterious girls' nights had begun. I'd been documenting evidence of deception, but I'd missed the most obvious explanation. She hadn't just been lying about where she was going. She'd been lying about who she was going with. "I'm sorry, man," Mike said. "I know this sucks to hear." "No, I needed to know. Thank you for telling me." After we hung up, I sat in the hotel room and tried to process this new information. My wife had been having an affair with my best friend for months. The kitchen scene I'd walked in on wasn't the beginning of something. It was just the first time they'd been careless enough to let me see what was really going on. I called Jennifer Martinez and filled her in on the new development. "Hey, this is actually good news for your case," she said. "If we can establish that she was having an affair during the marriage, it strengthens your position significantly, especially regarding the house." "How do we prove it?" "Well, you've got a witness who saw them together publicly, acting like a couple. And if this Jimmy person is willing to testify about what Brandon has been saying at work, that's even better. Do you think you could get a statement from him?" "I can try." "Good. In the meantime, I want you to be extra careful about any contact with your wife. People who are having affairs and get caught tend to become unpredictable. They might try to flip the script, make you look like the bad guy." As if on cue, my phone started ringing. Laura's number. I'd been ignoring her calls for 3 days, but something made me answer this one. "Hello, Laura." "Ethan?" Her voice was different, not the panicked, crying tone from the voicemails, but something harder, angrier. "We need to talk." "My attorney advised me not to communicate with you directly." "Your attorney, right. Because that's what normal people do, Ethan. They lawyer up and freeze bank accounts instead of having adult conversations about their problems." "Adult conversations," I repeated, "like the adult conversation we had in the kitchen when you told me the door was always open?" I was upset. You were being controlling and suspicious, and I said something I didn't mean. But filing for divorce? Freezing our accounts? That's insane, Ethan. That's not proportional to what happened." I could hear traffic in the background of her call. She was calling me from somewhere public, which meant she probably didn't want this conversation overheard at home. Interesting. "Where are you, Laura?" What does it matter where I am? Just curious. Since you're so concerned about having adult conversations, I figured you'd want to be honest about basic things like your location." There was a long pause. "I'm at the grocery store." "Which grocery store?" "Why are you interrogating me? This is exactly the kind of controlling behavior I'm talking about." "I'm not interrogating you. I'm just trying to figure out if you're capable of telling the truth about anything, even something as simple as where you are when you call me." Another pause. Longer this time. "I'm with Brandon," she said finally. "Okay. Are you happy now?" "I'm with Brandon because he's been helping me deal with this nightmare you've created." There it was. The admission I'd been waiting for. "How long, Laura?" "How long what?" How long have you been with Brandon? And don't lie to me anymore. I already know the answer. I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line. When she spoke again, her voice was smaller, less defiant. It's not what you think. What I think is that you've been having an affair with my best friend for months, lying to me about where you've been and what you've been doing, and then having the audacity to call me controlling when I asked you to stop flirting with him in our kitchen. Am I wrong about any of that? Ethan? Am I wrong, Laura? It just happened, okay? It wasn't planned. We were just talking, and he was listening to me about our problems, and you were always working or distracted or treating me like I was some kind of burden, and he made me feel like I mattered again. The classic cheater's playbook. It just happened, it wasn't planned, and somehow it was all my fault anyway. So it is an affair. It's not. We're just close friends who care about each other. Close friends who hold hands at Murphy's pub and have dinner dates while I'm staying in a hotel because you told me to leave my own house. Silence. You've been watching me? I don't need to watch you, Laura. You're not as discreet as you think you are. Half the town has seen you two together. It's not an affair, she said again, but her voice lacked conviction. Fine. Let's say it's not an affair. Let's say you're just close friends with Brandon. Are you planning to end this close friendship and work on our marriage? Another long pause. I don't know, she said finally. I don't know if our marriage is worth saving anymore. And there it was. The truth she'd been dancing around for months. Our marriage wasn't worth saving to her, at least not as much as whatever she had with Brandon was worth pursuing. Okay, I said. Thank you for being honest. What does that mean? It means you just made this whole process a lot simpler. I was willing to consider the possibility that we could work through this if you were willing to end whatever was going on with Brandon and commit to rebuilding trust. But if you don't think our marriage is worth saving, then we're done here. Ethan, wait. No, Laura. You don't get to have it both ways. You don't get to have an emotional affair with my best friend and then act like I'm the unreasonable one for being upset about it. You don't get to tell me the door's always open and then be surprised when I actually walk through it. And you definitely don't get to string me along while you figure out whether you want to be married to me or dating Brandon. That's not what I'm doing. That's exactly what you're doing, and I'm done enabling it. I hung up the phone and immediately called Jennifer Martinez to report the conversation. She listened to my summary without interrupting, then gave a low whistle. Well, that was helpful. She basically admitted to the affair, even if she's trying to minimize it. And her statement about not knowing if the marriage is worth saving is going to be very useful if she tries to contest the divorce later. What happens now? Now we wait to see if she hires an attorney and what her strategy is going to be. But honestly, Ethan, based on what you just told me, I think she's going to fold. People who are having affairs and get caught usually don't want to go through a long, public court battle that's going to expose all their dirty laundry. So you think she'll agree to settle? I think she'll try to negotiate for more than we want to give her, but ultimately, yes. Especially once she realizes that fighting this is going to cost her more money than she'll gain from dragging it out. After I hung up with Jennifer, I sat in the hotel room and tried to figure out how I felt about Laura's admission. Angry, obviously. Betrayed, definitely. But also, strangely, relieved. For months, I'd been questioning my own sanity, wondering if I was being paranoid or controlling or unreasonable. Now I knew I'd been right all along. My wife had been cheating on me with my best friend, lying about it for months, and then trying to make me feel like the bad guy for noticing. The gaslighting, the deflection, the attempts to make me doubt my own perceptions, it had all been a deliberate strategy to cover up her affair. But it was over now. The truth was out, the papers were filed, and Laura had essentially admitted that she'd rather be with Brandon than work on our marriage. There was no going back from here. For the first time since this whole mess started, I felt like I could see clearly again. And what I saw was a future without Laura, without the constant stress of wondering what she was really doing and who she was really with, without the exhausting cycle of fights and false reconciliations. It was going to be a better future. 2 weeks later, I was back in my own house. The judge had granted the temporary exclusive use order, which meant Laura had exactly 48 hours to collect her personal belongings and find somewhere else to live. She'd chosen to do this while I was at work, which was probably smart on her part. I wasn't feeling particularly charitable toward her at the moment. She'd taken her clothes, her fitness equipment, her collection of self-help books, and about half the furniture. What she'd left behind was a house that felt simultaneously empty and more peaceful than it had in months. No more walking on eggshells, no more wondering what mood she'd be in when she got home, no more pretending everything was fine when it obviously wasn't. I was sitting in my kitchen, the same kitchen where this whole mess had started, when my phone rang. Jennifer Martinez. "I've got news," she said. "Laura's attorney called. They want to settle." "What are their terms?" She's willing to agree to the divorce in exchange for half the equity in the house and half of your 401k. No alimony, no spousal support, clean break. I did some quick math in my head. Half the house equity would be about $40,000. Half my retirement account would be another $30,000. $70,000 to end my marriage and get my life back. What do you think? I asked. I think it's a reasonable offer. Probably less than what she might get if we went to trial, but going to trial would cost both of you more in legal fees than the difference would be worth. And it gets this resolved quickly and quietly. How quickly? If you agree to the terms, we could have everything finalized within 30 days. 30 days to officially end 5 years of marriage. It seemed both too fast and not fast enough. There's one more thing, Jennifer said. She's also requesting that both parties agree not to disparage each other publicly or on social media, and that any information about the marriage or the divorce proceedings remain confidential. I laughed, but there wasn't much humor in it. She's worried about her reputation. Probably. Affairs tend to be socially messy, especially in small towns. She's likely trying to minimize the damage to her personal and professional relationships. I thought about that for a moment. Laura made her living as a fitness instructor, which meant her income depended partly on her reputation in the community. If word got out that she'd been cheating on her husband with his best friend, it could definitely hurt her business. What if I don't agree to the confidentiality clause? Then we go back to negotiating, and she might decide to fight the whole thing. Is it worth it to you to be able to tell people what really happened? I considered that question seriously. Part of me wanted everyone to know the truth about why our marriage had ended. I was tired of being the bad guy in Laura's version of events. Tired of her playing the victim while I got painted as the controlling husband who'd abandoned his wife over one stupid fight. But another part of me just wanted this to be over. I wanted to move on with my life, not spend the next year in a public battle with my ex-wife over who was more to blame for our failed marriage. I'll agree to the confidentiality clause, I said finally, but I want one addition. What's that? I want her to agree that if she violates the confidentiality clause, if she tells people I was abusive or controlling or abandoned her, then the clause is void and I can tell my side of the story. Jennifer was quiet for a moment. That's actually pretty smart. It gives her an incentive to stick to the agreement instead of trying to control the narrative after the fact. Can you make that work legally? I think so. Let me draft some language and run it by her attorney. 3 days later, Jennifer called back with the final settlement agreement. Laura had agreed to all the terms, including my addition about the confidentiality clause. All that was left was for both of us to sign the papers and wait for the court to make it official. I signed my copy at Jennifer's office on a Thursday afternoon in late October. The whole process took about 10 minutes. Just my signature on a dozen different pages, acknowledging that I understood what I was agreeing to and that I was doing so voluntarily. How do you feel? Jennifer asked as I handed back the pen. Relieved, I said, and realized I meant it. Tired, but relieved. That's normal. Divorce is exhausting, even when it's relatively amicable. But you should be proud of yourself. You handled this with a lot more grace than most people would have. I wasn't sure about that. There had been moments over the past month when I'd wanted to burn everything down, to expose Laura's affair to everyone we knew, to make her pay for the months of lies and gaslighting. But in the end, I'd chosen the path that got me what I actually wanted. My freedom, my house, and my self-respect. A week later, I got the final call from Jennifer. The divorce was official. After 5 years of marriage, Laura and I were legally strangers again. That night, I sat in my kitchen with a beer and tried to figure out what I was supposed to feel. Sad about the end of my marriage, angry about the betrayal, excited about starting over. Mostly, I just felt quiet. For the first time in months, my phone wasn't buzzing with accusatory texts or voicemails. No one was telling me I was controlling or unreasonable. No one was lying to me about where they'd been or who they'd been with. It was just me, in my house, with my thoughts and my beer, and the rest of my life stretching out ahead of me. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found Mike's number. Hey, he answered. How'd it go today? It's done. Officially divorced as of this afternoon. Damn, how are you holding up? I'm good. Really good, actually. Want to grab dinner this weekend? Celebrate my return to bachelorhood? Hell yes. I know just the place. After we hung up, I walked through the house that was now entirely mine. The master bedroom where Laura and I had slept for 3 years, the living room where we'd watched movies and argued about money and made plans for a future that would never happen. The kitchen where she told me the door was always open. She'd been right about that, in a way. The door had been open. I'd just walked through it in a direction she hadn't expected. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I heard about the divorce. I'm sorry things didn't work out. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. Brandon. I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. Some doors, once you close them, should stay closed. Instead, I opened my laptop and started browsing apartment listings in the next town over. Laura and Brandon could have their small-town drama and their complicated relationship built on lies and betrayal. I was going to start fresh somewhere new, with someone who understood that marriage was supposed to be a partnership, not a power struggle. The door was always open, just like Laura had said. I'd walked through it and found something better on the other side. A life where I didn't have to question my own sanity, where I didn't have to tolerate disrespect in my own home, where I could trust the person I was with to be honest about basic things like where they were and who they were with. It had taken me 5 years to learn that lesson, but I'd learned it well, and I was never going back,